What's going on, everyone? Harsh Bros Show. This is going to be a harsh take. My name is Noah. I'm here with Eric. Tonight we are just going to talk.
Yo,
Yeah, so tonight we're just going to talk about last night's Raw, this being recorded on September 1st. Um, I just want to talk about it because, God, I was bored out of my mind. I was watching it. I was kind of tuning in, tuning out. Um, but God, there was very little things that I enjoyed on the show. You started off with Randy Orton and Keith Lee. I mean, God forbid. Okay, I like Keith Lee. Love him to death. But what they're doing with him right now, I'm glad he's getting a push, right? I'm glad he's already in like that main event slot because he deserves it, frankly. I mean, he does. But like his music is fucked. So it's hard to get behind that. I don't know why they wouldn't just keep the like actual "Bask in His Glory" like song because it fucking slaps. But that's besides the point. Randy and Keith get like in this battle of words, and then Ziggler attacks him from behind. Whatever. Keith Lee still wins the match. He goes on to the triple threat later on that night for the number one contendership. Uh, and then after that, you get Adam Pearce talking about Retribution, saying, "No, they're not gonna get in."
which
They,
means they're
which
gonna
means they will. Yeah, which means they're gonna show up. I mean, it's so like WWE to be like, well, these people are not going to show up, and because you weak little guards are gonna prevent it from happening. And then later on in the show, like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They will show up. Oh, what a subversion of expectations! You said they weren't gonna show up, and now they're here. Mind fucking blowing, but whatever. After that, Charlie Caruso is interviewing Asuka in the ring. She starts speaking part Japanese, part English, and I don't know if you watch her YouTube channel, she can do both very well. I can understand her English without using subtitles or anything, but it's like sometimes like I don't understand why like
they really play up the fact that she's a Asian woman with a lot of energy, so when she speaks we have to make sure you can really understand her,
yeah,
despite the fact that on her Kana-chan YouTube channel
very cute
she
by the
speaks
way.
perfect English. I mean, like,
Yeah,
maybe not perfect, but to the point where you can definitely know what she's saying.
right.
You know what she's saying. She doesn't just go on these random tirades of incredibly fast Japanese just to show that she is indeed Asian. We got to focus on that.
Right. Uh, and then she says she's ready. She's ready for anyone. Mickey James comes out. Mickey James is like, "Well, I'm a six-time women's champion. If I can recognize greatness, I see it right here. You know." Uh, she says that Asuka is probably one of the all-time greats. Natalia's music hits. She comes out with Lana, and then they get into a confrontation. Um, and then they get in this little squall, and then it's Mickey James versus Lana with Natalia at ringside, and Mickey James just dominates the match basically. I mean, like Lana gets in some offense, tries to get a heel win, trying to use the referee to get a cheap shot, but it doesn't work. Um, so Mickey James wins, and poor Asuka, they put her on commentary for God knows why. I mean, like, this is the problem I have with them booking Asuka. It's they put her on commentary. I mean, like, yeah, she's great, right? She's fun. She's energetic. She's like wacky as hell. But then you put her on the broadcast team with what's his fuck Tom Phillips, Byron, and then Samoa Joe. And whenever Asuka starts speaking, speaking in Japanese or otherwise, they're like, "Oh, I don't know what she said, but it's
It feels like at that point, if you're just gonna have her do that, and then just have the other commentators just be like, "Well, I don't know what she's saying, but I assume it's insert interpretation here." Why even have her at that point? It
yeah,
it just feels kind of pointless.
not only does it just like feel kind of pointless, it's just kind of demeaning to her character a little bit. I think it's like what's the fucking point? You having her there as like a comedy act at that point. This is your Raw Women's Champion. This is Asuka.
I mean, this is the thing. It goes back to what I was just saying a little bit ago. Is they keep feeling like they have to remind everyone that, oh, ha ha ha, look at her speaking Japanese, funny Asian woman, nobody can understand her. It's like,
yeah,
that's your fucking champion. Like that is your Raw Women's Champion. I don't remember them ever having Becky Lynch or Charlotte or Ronda Rousey or any of the other women they've put over in the past year or two. I don't recall them ever having these forced comedy acts where Becky Lynch's accent is the focal point of a comedy act or anything like that. It's frankly demeaning. It really is. Like this is your champion, and we're not supposed to view her as somebody as the champion. We're just supposed to view her as, oh, haha, funny Asian woman.
Yeah,
like that's not how you should treat your champion. That's so demeaning.
Right.
I know this just kind of sounds like an anti-WWE rant. Oh, you're just a bunch of marks for AEW. Why don't you criticize them? But
when they give us something that is worth criticizing and like saying this is absolute garbage, then we'll say something about it. But so far, that hasn't really been the case. So,
at least in none of the podcasts we've had or any of the discussions we've had, that hasn't come up. But you best believe, when we do a podcast on an episode of AEW or something to criticize comes up, we will be a criticizing.
Yeah.
As is right
we
now,
have before.
The discussion is on Monday Night Raw.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we're criticizing.
I mean, though we are AEW marks, that's besides the point. But but to go on, Kevin Owens.
To go for this little tangent we went on.
Yeah. So then you have Kevin Owens versus Randy Orton. This is another qualifying match for the triple threat. Kevin Owens and Aleister Black having this feud for no reason, I think. Last week, Kevin Owens invited Aleister Black onto the show just to be like, yo, are you okay, kind of thing. Aleister Black's in this fucking eye patch, whatever, eye wrap thing around his head. Kevin Owens like, yo, you okay? And then Aleister Black gives him a Judas effect and then gives him a black mask, seemingly for no reason, right? Well, why? There's still no explanation.
It's really weird because he was booked as a face up until this point, and then he gets injured by somebody that isn't Kevin Owens. By
I don't get it.
Rollins,
yeah.
One of his
so why not have Aleister just get rid of this Dominic and the Mysterio family and Seth Rollins feud? Jesus Christ, it's boring me to hell. But we'll talk about that later. Like, stop with that. Aleister and Seth feels way more interesting than what Kevin Owens and him. That doesn't make any sense. Kevin Owens was trying to be a genuine guy and make sure he was okay. You know, and this that isn't really grounds for a heel turn. You know, like this happened because Seth Rollins injured you. Seth Rollins was the person that injured you. Why are you mad at Kevin Owens? The character development here makes no sense. What's that?
It just feels very contrived, in that now they're just kind of having Kevin's job for the heel of the week, and
yeah,
it's really weird because I think he's a fantastic wrestler personally.
Absolutely, they both are. You hate to see this.
Because you kind of have him on the sidelines for the Seth and Ray feud, and Seth's attack on people's eyes, took him out. It extracted Ray's eye. And Ray is still obviously a face. Him and Dominic are obviously faces, but Aleister just kind of going from this face of, oh, I'm gonna help my friends against Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins sucks, and him being on the face side with Ray and I believe Humberto Carrillo. They kind of had a short little thing together against the Monday Night Messiah group, and then he gets injured, and now it's all of a sudden, oh, I'm a bad guy now. Like, really? That's the
I'm
angle
angry, and
you're gonna go
I'm
for?
gonna take out my anger on Kevin Owens, the guy that was just making sure I was okay.
It's it's just so weird because I could understand it if maybe last week like Kevin insulted him or
Right.
something and was like, oh well, you got injured by Seth, now you suck, I'm better than you, and just invited him on to make fun of him.
But yeah, that's not the case. Um, so yeah, that this rivalry makes no sense. I feel really bad for the both of them because they're both fantastic. But yeah, Alistair interrupts. Like Kevin Owens supposed to face Randy Orton. Alistair Black attacks him before he can even enter the ring. Gives him a black mask, throws him in the ring, feeds him to Randy Orton. Basically, ref makes sure he's okay to fight, and KO is like, yeah, I'm fine, and then rings the bell. Couple trading blows, RKO. Randy Orton wins. Like, I feel so bad for Kevin Owens here. This man won at WrestleMania against Seth Rollins. And then now what? He gets no push. Seth Rollins gets like a chance to be a number one contender for the title. I don't see how that's fair, but we could agree to disagree. Whoever in the comments wants to talk about that, but like I cannot see in what realm of like possibility that Kevin Owens doesn't get a push after his WrestleMania win. Why is that not a thing? It's Seth Rollins got elevated after his loss. So it's like I don't understand.
It was such a weird like instance because personally I liked the Kevin and Seth feud. I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was a really good I guess feud for Seth to have with his new Monday Night Messiah gimmick because I don't know, Kevin Owens, he had his feud with Shane, and he's had past feuds where it's pretty much been like him against some kind of quote unquote authority figure.
Mm-hmm.
And Seth saying, oh, he's saving Monday Night Raw, he's the savior of Monday Night Raw. It kind of gave something for Kevin Owens to fight back against, and I personally liked that dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Because going into WrestleMania, it was really entertaining. Like, yeah, Seth Rollins has had all these great moments, and Kevin Owens hasn't really had anything like super amazing. So him beating Seth was supposed to be this huge, the hero finally wins moment. The bad guy is defeated, and now Kevin Owens can go on to get more of a push. But it just didn't happen that way, and that was
No.
like literally Seth came back the next week, I think, or it might have been several weeks after. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he comes back and is like, yeah, I lost, but I'm still the Monday Night Messiah. And they just went forward with it like that loss at WrestleMania just didn't happen. He just said, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm going to continue doing what I'm doing.
Yeah, and
And
that is such a cop out to be like, oh yeah, my loss doesn't matter. Because yeah, it does. Like in the realm of a sports competition thing, like your loss does matter. Like especially from a storytelling standpoint, your loss matters because the other guy went over, and that guy should be continually being going over, right? But this guy's like, no, I'm just gonna let that all slide. It basically didn't even happen. I'm still the best around here, kind of thing. It's like, I get that to be like a heel and be like, well, fucking whatever. I don't know what you're talking about. That didn't happen. But they just dropped it completely. It'd be different if you were like building more off of it, but you're going right into a different storyline and just completely dropping it. And I don't know.
see, I'm going to disagree a little bit here because I mean you said it a little bit right there. It's a heel tactic,
Right.
like him just being like, oh yeah, I lost, but that didn't really count. It doesn't matter. I'm still the best. Like I can completely get them going that route, let's say,
Right.
and I would be fine with that. But whether he wants to go and do the heel thing about it, that's fine. He did lose, and Kevin Owens did win,
Mm-hmm.
but they did nothing with him.
Right.
That's where my issue primarily lies. Is I wouldn't have minded if Seth did exactly what he's doing now,
Right.
but
But it went into
Kevin
the
Owens
ether
also
and just
separately got a push. You know, maybe got a mid card title shot or did something. He got in some kind of storyline where he was involved because he did have a big win at WrestleMania. I mean, Jesus Christ, that spot he took where he dove off of the sign, like
yeah, like that's
that was crazy. I mean, that was I don't know. I was personally entertained by it. I thought it was an entertaining match that you know ended, and then Kevin was like, "No, come back. Like I'm not gonna win by DQ. That's shitty. We're gonna have a no DQ match," and they kept it going. I thought that was fine.
mhm.
I thought it was a very heel versus face moment, and I don't know. I was entertained by it, but with all the buildup that was in that, I mean, they were building up to it for weeks leading up to WrestleMania. Just for Kevin to get nothing out of it. I mean, obviously he's high caliber talent. I mean, he's been the Universal Champion. He's been the U.S. Champion. So obviously he has the talent to be in a mid card or main event slot. So it just really bothers me that he just got nothing out of it, and they just continue to push
Yeah.
Seth down the same route.
Yeah, that is what bothers me the most out of this entire thing is that Kevin Owens got his huge WrestleMania win and then what? Nothing. This man is just he's so talented, deserves way more than what he's getting. And they will constantly throw out the fact that Kevin Owens was a former he's a former Universal Champion. Like, and he should have had it way longer than what he did. Because what he lost it to Goldberg. He jobbed to
Yeah,
Goldberg.
whenever they want the title to change, they just bring Goldberg in, have him win, and then have him lose to the next person that they want to hold the title.
Right, just cut out the middleman. I mean, I get it. Like, if it's like to give it to Roman Reigns, it's like that during that time. I could say. I mean, like I like Roman Universal Champion now. He's heel. He's doing whatever the fuck he wants. It's entertaining. It was different when it was like being shoved down your throat about it.
Like I just think it's weird because they're like, oh, he's so unstoppable. Goldberg is you can't beat him. He can just come in and destroy people. And he has like 2 matches a year, like, and literally all he does is he just is the middleman for a title change.
Right.
I think that's the past like few times he's had a match besides his
Right.
bosh with
So yeah,
Undertaker.
Kevin Owens, former Universal Champion, and hasn't had really a big title push since. It's really sad. He deserves way better than his last big championship match being with Goldberg, basically. And that was like 2 years ago? Kind of, yeah. I think that was like
Yeah, and I know
2018.
he's held the United States title since, but I don't think it was
No.
really an interesting or memorable run.
Okay, yeah. So after that, after Randy just gets an easy win, we get to the Cedric Alexander and the Hurt Business feud. Cedric was, they thinking, quote unquote, about joining the Hurt Business, but he's like, hell no, I ain't joining you. And then he's like, I'm not alone, kind of thing, and he has the Viking Raiders back him up. Hurt Business and Cedric and the Viking Raiders have a match, 6-man tag. They have like a decent match up until, the finish. The finish is okay. Cedric gets a roll up on MVP and they win. So nice, woohoo.
I mean, I'll be honest. I like the Hurt Business. I mean, it's pretty much
I
just
like
like
it.
Nation of Domination
I like the Hurt
2.0,
Business. It's
but
interesting.
it's a weird way to end the match because one, I mean, you kind of have to have MVP take the pin in that sort of scenario
Oh,
because you don't
absolutely.
want Bobby Lashley to look weak. I mean, oh my God, the man benches like 500 pounds and could crush you with his pectoral muscles, but
Yeah.
you can't have him take a pin to Cedric Alexander. That's ridiculous. But having like a 50-year-old MVP take the pin is pretty much the only way you're going to be able to go. But
Absolutely.
I guess I'm just kind of curious about why they went about that the way they did. is I guess it's some sort of storytelling where they're like, yeah, Cedric Alexander, he's not gonna join the Hurt Business. That's not what he wants to do, and he proved it. But they've kind of been building the Hurt Business, building them up over the past however long they've been together, weeks, a month or two. And it's just really weird to build them up and then just have them lose to like the Viking Raiders, whose last feud was with
The
the
Street
Street
Profits.
Profit,
Yeah.
which was absolutely ridiculous, but also
Oh yeah.
really fun.
Speaking of which, for like a little tiny more tangent than we already do, Akira Tozawa and his ninjas. What the fuck is that? That is
Yeah,
so ridiculous, and dare I say, a little racist in a way.
I think it's more than a little.
Like, okay, so I didn't say this before we talked, but there was a segment for the 24/7 championship because Akira Tozawa was the 24/7 champion. I say was because R-Truth fucking got it again. But like,
I don't mind. I mean,
I don't
think
mind
R-Truth
at this
is
point. Just
super
fucking
funny.
retire the belt with R-Truth. No one cares. It doesn't make me
It's
laugh
just
in the
wasted TV
slightest.
time, honestly. Like
It's,
the only antics that make me laugh is, I mean, R-Truth makes me laugh. Like it's nothing about the belt or literally
no,
anybody else.
R-Truth is just
R-Truth is just
so
funny.
funny. Yeah, he's just a great guy. But yeah, like Akira Tozawa was driving in with this like this huge van with like a bunch of people, and like one of the security people's like, hey, you can't come in here, and he's like, well, I'm Akira Tozawa, these are my ninjas. And it was just like, hearing it out loud is just disgusting. But the security guard was a referee. R-Truth got the roll up from behind. And yep, that was that. R-Truth is the champion, whatever. So
Yeah, we're
and
just
then
gonna move on.
yeah, we're just gonna move on for now. I mean, Hurt Business attacks Cedric Alexander later on, but like backstage, but we'll save that for later, I guess. And then it's the women's tag team match with the Riot Squad, if you could call it that. And the Iconics winner gets a number one contendership for the women's tag titles, which are held by Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax. Whatever. We can talk about Nia Jax at a later time. So the match is okay. It's a classic tag team match. And then unprecedentedly, Ruby Riott gets a roll up on Peyton Royce, and they win. Mind you, that is the second match in a row where the finish has been a roll up. 1, 2, 3. And the loser had to disband. You're telling me the Riot Squad, which is no longer a squad, by the way. Sarah Logan's gone.
Team up until this point.
No, they haven't even they've barely been a tag team up until this point. Well, I just heard about this like last night. I'm like, oh, I guess Ruby Riott and Liv Morgan are teaming again. They might have had something last week, but I wasn't caring enough to pay attention. But the Iconics, who have been an established tag team, the first ever women's tag champions, if I'm not mistaken, right? They were the first ones to have the belts. And then it was Asuka and Kairi, I think, and then it was it was Bayley and Sasha. Then it was Asuka and Kairi. Then it's or something like whatever. Then it was like Alexa and
The first was
Nikki.
Bayley and Sasha, so not quite as
okay, but
prodigious,
yeah, right?
but I know
I
what
think
you're trying to say.
I know they were like the second or something, but still former champions. I mean, they were at least a tag team, like even before the women's tag division, they were a team. You know, it's like,
yeah.
But now they have to disband because they lost to the Riot Squad, who aren't even a squad anymore and were barely even a team beforehand. And if the point is to push Peyton Royce, you didn't have to disband her team. I don't know.
I personally, I I fucking love the Iconics. I think they're ridiculous, and I think the fact that obviously they purposely wrestle bad. That's their thing is purposely wrestling bad, and everyone's like, oh, they suck, they can't wrestle. Well, you have to be at least somewhat of a good wrestler to purposely do it bad.
Yeah, I mean, like that takes a certain level of of skill to
Yeah,
like.
you have to be at least somewhat competent to purposely do something wrong.
Oh, and let me
And
tell you, there's a lot of incompetent wrestlers within WWE even, but that's
yeah, completely. But them being actually a pretty decent tag team for what they are. I mean, the Riot Squad wasn't even, they weren't even a tag team. They're not even a squad. Where's Sarah Logan? Not in WWE.
mhm.
Pretty sure she retired apparently after getting her arm broken and crying on live TV, which was absolutely disrespectful to her as a
Yeah.
way to go out. But um, if I recall correctly, Liv Morgan just had this big storyline a few months ago where she beat Ruby Riot and was like, "Oh, I'm not under your shadow. I'm my own person. I'm gonna find out who I am."
That
And
was
now just
exactly
randomly
it.
teams up with Ruby Riot again, and
It's,
it's
I
like
don't
y'all
know.
weren't even a tag team. You just had a storyline where you were proving that you didn't need Ruby Riot to be good, and now you're right back here, and we're just gonna ignore that.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man. Do you really think the fans are that stupid?
Oh, they don't care,
I mean, my
but
God.
that's
And then
besides
you
the
have
point.
them beat an actual tag team and have them disband. Y'all weren't even banded to be disbanded.
Right, you were barely a band to be disbanded. So like you would think that it would go straight to them, like the Riot Squad, disbanded, and then they could like rekindle the rivalry, Ruby Riot and Liv Morgan. I'd probably want to see that again a little bit, rather than what's happening now, having the Iconics disband. I don't really care. Why would I want to see that? No, they're a
The
good team.
only reason I could possibly think to justify this is obviously, like I said, the Iconics are uh, they're obviously ridiculous,
Hmm.
and that's their whole thing. And I definitely don't think that they're like face wrestlers. I mean, let's face it, I don't think they are. So I guess maybe they didn't want to have a heel versus heel tag team feud, but
I don't know.
I don't I don't know. I mean the champs are Naya and Shayna, and
I'd hardly
those are
call
about
them
as
face
no.
because I mean like Bailey and Sasha were supposed to be the heels, right?
Yeah,
And then
I mean, I I don't think Nia Jax can be considered a face at like any point. She's always just kind of been the big bruiser who comes in and just beats people up. I mean, she had a moment with Alexa Bliss where she's like, "Oh, you're just looking down on me because you're pretty or whatever," and I don't think Nia Jax looks bad by any stretch of the imagination. So that was really weird to call attention to something that didn't need attention called to it. But
mm,
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe they didn't want to have her potentially injure the Iconics.
right, I don't know.
But I mean, it's just a weird situation, and I mean, I'll watch it, I guess, but it's not something I'm, I guess, particularly interested in.
All right, and then following that whole ordeal is Seth Rollins versus Dominic Mysterio. And whoever wins this, because Bray was out because due to quote unquote injury. I'm not sure of the legitimacy of the injury. Maybe it's a work. I don't know. But it's Dominic versus Seth, and whoever wins that is like the last person in the triple threat. Seth Rollins doesn't squash him. They trade back and forth, but you knew that like Rollins was going to win, and he does. He gives him a good old curb stomp, and then after the match, gives him another curb stomp, No one did anything to stop it. No one cared. No one bothered to check in on Dominic after the second curb stomp. But the Mysterio family just looking at the screen, going, "Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh, poor Dominic!" Like dude, like you could just like run to the ring, and go check on him. Like that's your son. That's your brother, kind of thing. It's like, come on, whatever. Anyway, that's besides the
Yeah.
point. After that, you go back to Raw Underground. Like Titus O'Neil versus Riddick Moss. Riddick Moss bodies Titus O'Neil for some reason. I don't get that. You were building up Titus O'Neil before the break or whatever. They like, oh, he's going in Raw Underground. He's reinventing himself. Gets bodied by Riddick Moss for no reason. But whatever.
And look, why is Rick Moss getting any sort of a push?
I
Like
don't
that man,
know.
he should be a fucking jobber.
I
Like
don't
I shouldn't
know.
even know his name, and instead I have to talk about him beating Titus O'Neil. Like that's
It's
such
it's
a
it's
ridiculous
it's
scenario.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Um, and then you get a commercial break, whatever, and then it's the Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza, with Zelina Vega and Demi Burnett at ringside. Whatever. They have back and forth, and then Montez Ford does the ring rope thing like Batista and Ultimate Warrior, where he shakes the rope and then the lights flicker, and you know what that means. That means Retribution is in the building, and then there they come. They start running roughshod over like the entire ring, whatever. The announcer, like the commentators are like, we gotta get out of here, and then they just kind of like do some shit, and then like they go to commercial break. We come back from commercial break, and the commentators are fine, like nothing happened really. They're just like same energy as before Retribution came into the building. Really just kind of undermines Retribution even being there. It didn't really matter. It didn't really matter, but that's besides the point. When they come back from commercial break, there's a segment backstage with I think this might be later on in the show, maybe after a little bit of Raw Underground. Yeah, it is a little bit after some Raw Underground, that Angel Garza and Demi they're walking backstage, and she calls Retribution Restoration. How do you get it wrong? Like that is like that was probably like the only thing in your script, and like you couldn't even do that. Like, come on. Whatever. That's besides the point. Raw Underground's stupid. I hate Raw Underground. It does not bring me any sort of entertainment. Especially if you just watch it just to see what the Hurt Business beat up Ricochet, Cedric Alexander, and Apollo Crews. 3 superstars who deserve way better than what they're getting. It just makes me sad. There's just no. It's just padding for time. When instead of Raw Underground, I would rather you just be 2 hours long.
There's
I would
really
rather
any
that.
stakes to it.
There's no stakes. It doesn't matter. It just kind of like anything that Raw Underground is using, like time wise, could be filled in with like backstage segments and actual storytelling. Like. Just using Raw Underground as a cushion to be like, oh, throw them all in here, have them fight. Oh, there's a reason for them to fight now. Like, no, I don't.
None of the matches matter. Like I like the whole idea of like a shoot fight,
Right. But nothing matters. There's no stakes.
On Raw Underground that's mattered. It's just been, here's gonna be somebody. Here's a jobber. We're gonna fight. Oh, somebody wins. Congratulations. And nothing happens. It's just like there's no point to this. None of this has any sort of impact on anything.
Raw Underground does not matter. I don't care. I hope it goes sooner than later. But moving on, we get to the main event. It's the triple threat. Randy Orton versus Keith Lee versus Seth Rollins. On paper, this match looks absolutely awesome.
Yeah,
like,
that is a pretty stacked triple threat match.
That's a stacked triple threat match. Like, on paper, this could be a pay-per-view match. Like, it's seemingly really cool. But it's like 9:45 at the time that starts. It's like, well, this is only gonna last like 15 minutes at most, so it doesn't really matter. The whole match was just predictable from start to finish. You knew that like Randy Orton and Seth were gonna try to team up on Keith Lee, but like Randy Orton's gonna be like, nah, I'm gonna do things for myself, and then they get into an altercation, and then Keith Lee comes back, destroys Seth Rollins, and then Randy Orton, kind of cowers from behind and gives Keith Lee an RKO after he just delivered a spirit bomb to Seth and then pins Seth Rollins. It was predictable from start to finish. So it'll be Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre at Clash of Champions. Who saw that coming? Absolutely everyone. I think absolutely everyone saw that coming. I mean, I didn't think the feud would just end at SummerSlam, especially if he just won with like a backslide. That's like the hugest indication. I was like, well, this feud's not over. There's no satisfying finish.
Yeah, especially because in the promos leading up to SummerSlam, he kept saying that he was going to Claymore kick Randy's head off.
And then,
He didn't even deliver the Claymore kick. Is this kind of, I don't know, underwhelming? So, like, obviously the feud is going to continue. I mean, I don't know why, like, this is particularly why, or I guess how Keith Lee gets into the main event scene is just playing second fiddle to Randy.
Yeah.
Despite just beating him at Payback.
Yeah.
I mean, and pretty dominantly, too.
Yeah, it was basically a squash. Keith Lee absolutely decimated Randy Orton, who was the last challenger. So if anything, if you go with like wins and losses standpoint, Keith Lee should technically be next in line.
Yeah, it makes little sense to me. I mean, obviously Randy's a good heel, but you can't just rely on him to be a heel in every situation. You need more than one fucking heel.
Yeah, and like
obviously there are, but you can't. I mean, obviously they can, but they just gave Keith Lee a big win at Payback, just to immediately turn around in Raw and basically just negate it.
Yeah, it just feels weird at this point. And yeah, that's why I believe that Raw for August 31st sucked. I hated it. Not a single thing on this card was entertaining to me. I was completely turned off. Maybe it's because I went in with a bad attitude, and like I went in with low expectations, but like somehow those expectations were higher than I expected. Like this show was below my expectations, honestly. Not a single thing about it was entertaining to me. I was mainly looking forward to that triple threat, and while it sort of delivered, but it was just so damn predictable that like I couldn't really get into it.
Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't. There's just nothing going on right now that I'm invested in. Like all of their ongoing feuds, I'm either just end it, and all the feuds they're starting, I don't understand. And maybe that's just like me kind of being a cynic, but I mean, none of this is interesting.
Right. It's like
none of this makes me want to be like, oh man, I can't wait to see what happens on Raw next week. It's nothing is enticing me and making me want to continue watching. I mean,
oh yeah, no, not
I
at all.
will continue watching, but
yeah,
but that's more of just like me watching than me wanting to particularly see anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's more like I'm just watching to watch. I'm not watching because I'm being enticed. There's nothing. There's nothing giving me a reason.
I'm watching because it's wrestling. It's wrestling. It's wrestling on TV. It's accessible, and it's there, and it's we love the sport so much. We love the entertainment, and we love the business. So that's why we watch. But like when the business is bad, you're gonna make an honest critique about it. And like, and some people might say, well, that maybe WWE's not for you. It's like, but it was for me. It was for me a long time ago. What changed?
It there's even been stuff recently that I've enjoyed,
Yeah, there
but
are some stuff on here, especially coming from NXT, that like I enjoy. Like for instance, something I did not expect to enjoy was Pat McAfee and Adam Cole. Blew
yeah,
my
I had
expectations out of the
very low
water.
expectations for that, and that
And
was
it was so
incredibly
good. I mean,
entertaining.
I knew Adam Cole was gonna work and he was gonna make Pat McAfee look good, regardless. But I didn't expect Pat McAfee to look as good as he did. It
Yeah,
was
like a
incredible.
non-wrestler to look good wrestling. I mean,
Right, like
that,
not
that definitely
non-wrestler
exceeded my
matches
expectations.
always like don't work on like in execution. They look fine on paper, but like I mean, we learned from what the Cain Velasquez, the Tyson Fury, we learned from them to like come in with these with our expectations low because we from those matches they were lackluster, they were garbage. So it's like you come in with that expectation that oh another non wrestler match, here we go, whatever, but in a way that actually subverted expectations. But the build for the match was good. It was better than the Tyson Fury or Cain Velasquez storylines. The build for Pat McAfee and Adam Cole was interesting. It was good.
with, with the initial like Pat McAfee working him on his podcast or discussion or whatever, there was real discussion. Like, is this a work or is this like legit?
Yeah, like and if
It had
you
people talking that
yeah,
was legitimately interesting
if you can
because you
have
didn't
people
know.
talking and if you have them question whether or not it's real or it's a work, or I mean vice versa, if it's a well no, yeah, if it was real or if it's a work, then
Yeah,
that is good. That is money. You know usually you want to like tend more on the real side, but like that's catering to kayfabe and kayfabe's dead. But but yeah, like that was so interesting. I loved Pat McAfee and Adam Cole. It was it had me invested. I wanted to see it at that point. Like, will Pat McAfee win against Adam Cole, a non wrestler, his first wrestling match? Like, and he looked good. He looked good in the ring.
yeah. So it's not like everything WWE does we're just like shitting on, because there are legitimate things we like, but there's
Yeah,
a lot more that we dislike, and I
yeah,
I, I think it's important to offer our critique and opinions on it. I mean, especially if we're like this is a fucking wrestling podcast. Of course, we're going to talk about what we don't like. We're going to talk about what we like,
hmm
and that's just what this is. So,
yeah. I find
I mean, at the
myself,
moment, there's not a lot we like, so that's what we're talking about. But if there's ever a bunch of storylines that we like or invested in, you're probably going to hear a lot about that.
right. I find myself watching New Japan highlights more often than I watch WWE highlights now, because I mean New Japan's got some really interesting stuff going on over there now that they're having like fans come back a little bit, not like in full swing, but like a little bit socially distanced fans, like what AEW is doing, because they're smart and don't run a sloppy shop. Um,
Oof.
right. But that's besides the point. That could be saved for later. That's really all I wanted to talk about was Raw, uh, and how wrong it was. Um, a nice pun to end the harsh take. Went a little bit longer than I anticipated. Well, right now we're at like 43 minutes. I said in
Yeah,
the
this has
chat.
been a lot longer.
I said in the chat before the pod like this episode was gonna even start recording. I was like, it should only take like 15 minutes. I just wanted to like talk about, I just want to talk about Raw and like how bad it was, But when you're passionate about something, you tend to want to talk about it a little bit longer than you anticipate, and that's kind of what happened here. Um,
Yeah, this take turned out not to be so quick.
yeah, the harsh take. I was expecting just to be like a little segment, but it's like it's a mini pod episode, if anything, and that's okay. So yeah, this is the first harsh take. Hopefully, in the future there'll be a little shorter, but maybe it's just because it was two of us and we were having heated discussion, heated like passionate about the business. So that is it for a Harsh Take from the Harsh Bro Show. I've been Noah, your younger Harsh Bro, and go ahead and sign off on yourself,
And
Eric.
I've been Eric.
All right, you have been Eric. I have been Noah. This is the Harsh Bro Show. Thanks for listening.